Do, do, do. Okay. Well, I'm really excited that you are here doing this. And today we're going to be building with Jannese.
Yay.
And this is a long time coming. And we connected really at the start of the pandemic and through Kim. Through Kim, who's like an amazing human being, and really just like have been even doing collabs together. But I think you were one of the first people that like really kept pushing me, but because you're like, let's do this thing, and I was like, me, like I hate being in front of the like camera, and you were like, let's do this like live summit, and literally within days you're like, all right, cool, we're going.
It's
So
amazing that you say that because I feel like when I reached out to you, I had probably like less than 2,000 followers on Instagram. And then I'm seeing this chick with like 11,000 people following her. And you act like you don't know anything, girl. You're like one of the smartest freaking people I know. So it's been such an honor to get to know you and to just be inspired by your work.
um but yeah, well, I mean, I think I was really excited. I think when we first even just chatted to find out that you are an engineer, like you're a woman in like STEM, and you have this side hustle and you're creative, right? And I think a lot of the times people think you can only do one, right? Like you're
Yes.
either a creative and you're like a starving artist, or you're like an engineer and that's all you do, like you just stick to numbers. So I would just love people to get to know you. Like who are you?
Sure. Well, who am I? Like, I think about this a lot, but my name is Jannese Torres Rodriguez. And like Joy said, I'm an engineer. I am also a podcaster. I'm a blogger. I'm a Zumba instructor. I'm an investor. I'm a Latina. Like, I'm so many things. When I think about like how I was as a kid and who I am now, like, I see the trajectory because I was always like the type of kid that was just inventing something to do to get into. And I feel kind of sad for kids nowadays because I feel like there's no emphasis on imagination like there was back in our time, even though it wasn't that long ago. Like I just see the kids on the tablets all day and I'm like, yo, like invent something, like use your brain, like be creative. Like that. My father is also in STEM. And so I feel like I definitely get that from him. He's a computer automation engineer. And so I definitely take after my dad. Like I've always been into science. I was always the kid that was competing like in the science fair, always getting first place because me and my dad, we were like unstoppable duo. And so, yeah, like I always tinkered. I always have been into just like inventing and creating and exercising this creative space in my brain that is always just looking for a new challenge. So, I obviously I'm Latina. I grew up in a very like traditional Latina or Latin home where people are emphasizing two things: go to school and get a good job. So I definitely did both of those things. I was originally pre-med. And in my junior year of college, I was like, nah, I'm not going to medical school. I'm done with school. Like, I'm over it. So I just decided to graduate with my degree. I got a degree in molecular biology and
Oh,
chemistry. Yeah, no big deal. I mean, I was going to get a medical degree. So it was kind of like the foundation, right? You either major in biology or some sort of science. But then when I graduated, I went right into industry and I started working in biotech, very male, very pale space. I was usually the only Latina in the entire department, maybe in the entire company, depending on where you are.
I'm sure one of
Definitely
the few women.
one of the few women, and usually like one of the younger people in general, especially like amongst my peers. So while I am very grateful for the career that I have and continue to have in STEM, I've always known that like I also had other things that I wanted to do. So I had a come to Jesus moment around the age of like 27. I really just felt like I had been following all of the rules of society and I just wasn't happy. Like I wanted more. And then I got laid off from my job. And while at the time it was a shock, it was actually one of the best things that ever happened to me because it actually gave me the headspace in order to start focusing on what I actually wanted. And I always loved cooking. I've been in the kitchen since I was 11 years old. And I thought I wanted to take this break in my career to go to culinary school. Quickly realized, no, I'm not about this like 16, 18 hour on my feet, work until 2 o'clock in the morning type life. And so I decided to start a food blog. I've always been like a hardcore Food Network, HGTV, like just sitting in front of the TV. I will watch Rachel Ray and, Giada De Laurentiis and all these people on Food Network. And so I noticed someone by the name of the Pioneer Woman, which many of y'all know has a huge empire now, and she originally built a food blog. So I was literally like, yo, if this lady could do it, why can't I? And I started my food blog in late 2013, and it has grown into this amazing 5-figure business. Now I'm teaching people how to create blogs. I am now a podcaster because this whole entrepreneurship journey has also inspired me to really get to understand personal finance. And so that's how I actually started podcasting too, because I wanted to learn more about money. I wanted to learn more about business, and I couldn't find anybody who looked like me and sounded like me, was Latina, anybody talking about this stuff. And so, as an engineer, I'm like, I got to solve this problem. This is another problem that I've encountered, and I'm going to create the space for it. And the podcast has grown exponentially since we launched last year. We've got over 36,000 downloads in like less than 6 months, because really I founded it in May of 2019, but really didn't start getting serious about it until earlier this year. And then the pandemic definitely put me into overdrive. So we've had all types of amazing guests. We've been nominated for 2 Plutus Awards. I've spoken to LULAC, one of the largest Latino civil rights organizations in the country. Like, it has opened so many doors, and I'm still blown away by just what we're accomplishing.
Because you were on a panel with Julian Castro, right?
Yeah, no big deal. I'm like at events with like Nancy Pelosi and whatever, and it's just like amazing the power of the internet, and how people can find you nowadays. As long as you like put yourself out there, it's really amazing what can come of that.
Yeah, and I think it's like really funny that you say that, because we've definitely talked about like how introverted we are. Like, even though we come off super bubbly and friendly, we're just like, please, like, leave me alone.
This
like,
takes a lot of effort, y'all. Like, I gotta get in a headspace to interact with people. Like, I have to give myself a pep talk.
Yes, no, I am the same way. I'm just like, okay, so it's funny because I've actually started blocking off my Thursdays and Fridays, and I'm just like, okay, these are my call days, recording days, because I'm just like in that space where I'm like,
Yes.
gotta interact with the humans.
We gotta hype ourselves up for this stuff.
Right. And I feel like people like us are probably thriving right now because we're just like, leave us alone in our little space. Like,
It's
social
true.
distance, we're fine.
I will not network in real life, but I will network the shit out of like a virtual setting.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. And you like we even did the summit. You've been doing the summits. And I think that's even like something that's really cool is I've literally seen people who went through the summits start doing stuff, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, like we're talking, we're like, cool, we're sharing, and like, that has a chain reaction to everything. Or even your podcast episodes, right? That when you're thinking of it, like I at the beginning of the pandemic didn't even have like a Roth IRA or anything, right? And I was like, wait, okay, and making it so casual, like conversation and funny, right? That you're just like, okay, no, like we need to start thinking about all of this stuff, right?
We do. It's so important. Like, everybody's affected by money. So like, why shouldn't you want to learn about it? And yeah, like you're mentioning the Side Hustle Summit. So that was an event that I put together with the help of amazing women like you. And we literally, it was a response to the pandemic. It's like you were hearing all these stories about people losing their jobs and all this insecurity that people have about money. And I have been blessed to be able to monetize many things that I'm passionate about. And it's all been online. So I'm like, why aren't we sharing this? Like, it shouldn't be this hard, because it took me many years to figure out how to monetize a blog and how to get brand sponsorships and how to work with affiliates. Like, but now that I know, the least I could do if I'm of any value to my community is to like share that and share it for free. And
Right.
so I'm so happy that we were able to connect and accomplish something like that.
Yeah, and I think the other thing on that is like, when you look at it from an industry perspective, it's like if people don't know, that's how they get scammed too, right?
Yes.
So it's like, if you're just like, oh, well, I'm not going to give everyone the secrets. It's like, no, you should also let them know because this is valuable. Because then someone comes sin vergüenza and is like, can I pay you like, just like $10 for this thing? And you're just like, what? Like,
Absolutely not.
right. Because they're just like, oh, we just like got it for this other person. And it's like, okay, yeah, well, they were underpaid too, right?
Right.
Right. And I feel like that's another aspect of it. But, I think one of the really cool things about what you've done is you've built everything into like a business, right? And you've like set yourself up for financial success. And what are kind of the things that got you into that space, right? Like the small building blocks that people can even, implement now that they're just like, okay, wait, like how do I even think about setting myself up, right? When you're in, especially now that you're in like a negative headspace, right?
It's very true. And I think, your mindset is definitely something that you have to tackle before you even start thinking about like trying to level up in other parts of your life, because that's going to dictate every decision that you make, how you're feeling about yourself and your situation. So, a question that I get a lot is like, how do I even know what I'm good at? I don't have any skills to like start a business, and that's crap. Like, we all have skills that you can monetize. And it can be something as simple as like if you are like an executive assistant, you have skills that can translate to a virtual assistant business. And you can charge people to do the exact same thing that you're doing at your job for your boss, scheduling meetings, sending emails, like booking clients, all that stuff. That's something that you can monetize on the side. And you don't have to invest like any money into it. As long as you have a laptop and you open an account with like Fiverr or Upwork or something, you can literally start advertising that stuff today. I am a big fan of blogging, and maybe it's because I'm old school. Like, people are like, oh, the blogs are dead, whatever, who cares? That's not true, y'all, because if you go on Google and you search for information, like 9 times out of 10, you're getting that information from a blog. Even if it doesn't have blog in the title, like it's usually a blog. And the way that you know that typically is like it's in chronological order, like from newest to oldest. Like that's a big sign that you're reading a blog. Some of the biggest websites in the world, like the Huffington Post, yeah, that's a blog, y'all. I don't know if you knew that, but it definitely is.
They
And
use WordPress.
yes, they use WordPress. I do, and they make millions of dollars a month.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not saying like that has to be your goal, because I mean that's just insane, but what I tell people is when you're thinking about monetizing or like creating something, you have to differentiate yourself. And I didn't figure that out at first. When I started food blogging, I was just making like random shit and putting it online with like no theme, no structure, whatever. And then I started realizing that as I was posting, especially Puerto Rican recipes, because I'm Puerto Rican, that stuff would go viral. And the reason why I found out later, after doing the market research that I should have done before, but I didn't know what I was doing, is that there's not a lot of Puerto Rican food bloggers. Like even to this day, I know maybe of like 4 or 5 of us that are out here in this space. And so people are hungry for this information. And if it doesn't exist, like that's your key to investigate. So the same thing happened with the podcast, right? I'm like searching for Latinas talking about money. Can't find them. Where the hell are they? And the fact is that they exist, but they're not getting mainstream media attention. They're not in like really well-known spaces. You're not going to see them on like Good Day TV, Good Morning America, whatever. But the space is still very lacking. And so I knew that right away. I'm like, there is a need here. I can fill that need. How I'm going to differentiate myself. I'm not going to do YouTube videos. Why? Because I'm not a YouTuber. I'm not into it. I'm not going to do like, TikToks. I'm not huge on being in front of camera. I'm going to do a podcast. Why? Because that's what's comfortable to me. That's something that I know I can commit to. And it's something that feels authentic to me. And so I think that's also another thing. Like you don't need to imitate what somebody else is doing if it doesn't feel like it's authentic to who you are. You can take inspiration from other people and then transform it into something that feels like it is representative of you.
Yeah, I think that's even what we were talking about earlier, right? I was just like, I'm not doing live streams anymore, right? Like, so I was like,
They're very
everyone's doing it.
stressful. These
Yeah,
IG
they're
lives, yo, they take a lot of my mental energy.
yeah, and we're just like, yay, and everyone's like, oh, you guys are great, and we're just like, we're dying inside.
So
Then
true.
it was like, yeah, then it's just like, wait, no, like let's do something that feels more comfortable. Like I'm like, I like the intimate one-on-one and don't want to think about like people are watching and what do I say, like but I think that's definitely one thing that's a really great takeaway is like be true to what you want to do. And another thing is, you still have a full-time job, right? And I think one, I have no
Yes.
idea how you do it, right? But I think that's the other thing that, people think of as a business, and I think even I thought of a business, you think of like corporate America,
Yeah.
right? You think about, okay, like this is an office, you're going to be like a CEO and you have to do all this stuff. You have to like raise venture capital and whatnot. And really, you're just like, wait, no, you can have a small business and still be making a lot of money, right?
Yes.
Um,
I am
yeah.
my venture capitalist investor. Okay. Like my full-time job is my investor to my business. Okay. So I've been very deliberate about my 9 to 5 corporate career. Like I definitely have built in flexibility into my schedule. I have built in the ability to work from home. I have built in a whole series of like decisions in my life that allow me to pursue my side hustles. I would never work for an employer that did not give me an adequate amount of time off. I would never work for an employer that made me be in the office from 9 to 5. And so you have to be willing to like not accept certain things if you want the space in your life to be able to do these other things that you're passionate about. I'm really big on just like not allowing yourself to be defined by what you do for work because it's such a fickle thing, and we're seeing that with COVID. Like people have been defining themselves by their jobs and then the shit gets ripped out from under you and then you're just like, okay, but then what else do I have? And so I've never been one to be like, yeah, sacrifice everything for the 9 to 5 because the 9 to 5 is not guaranteed. The only guaranteed investment that you can count on is you. And so whether or not you're working a full-time job and you're like moonlighting, side hustling on the side, like you need to be building multiple income streams. And I'm so passionate about that because as you've seen, like, relying on one income stream is definitely hazardous to so many aspects of your life, like your mental health, your financial situation, and God knows what else. If other people are relying on you, you don't need that type of stress in your life. And with the power of the internet, like there really is very limited excuses for why you can't start a business. And like you said, Joy, it's not about like you got to go rent out an office building, hire a bunch of people, and invest $100,000 to start a business. You can literally start off by selling your services on these third-party sites and start from there. Like you want to start gauging your skills and like what people will pay for them before you start making huge investments.
Mm-hmm.
So I still do a lot of my own DIY stuff for my blog. Like, I only hired a virtual assistant this year after doing the stuff for 7 years. I am my own social media manager. I am my own food photographer. I am my own editor. I write because I like doing these things. Like, if I didn't like to do stuff, like I don't like doing my taxes, so I'm definitely paying somebody to do that. I got a CPA.
You don't want to be audited.
I'm not trying to do all that, right? I don't like having to stress out about my business budget. So I got people to deal with that. Like you don't have to do everything, but you should definitely like try to learn as many aspects of what you're trying to do as possible because the more you outsource stuff, like you're kind of limiting your ability to grow too as an individual before if you outsource things before you even learn how they work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I totally agree on that. I used to train outsourcing teams and I used to like literally be in charge of doing all the ops and outsourcing. And I think that's very crucial because you want to build your own process and even understand. Especially, I used to work a lot with developers. So you don't want to get played too, right? Like, yeah. So but I was just like, wait, no, I know this isn't how it's going to, especially if you're a woman, I think, right?
Yes.
Especially if you're a person of color, but I think more so if you're a woman in general, they'll
Yeah,
just be
we
like,
get mansplained about all types of shit. And it's like, no,
yeah,
I'm going to be the expert and then I'm going to tell you what I need you to do. I'm not going to rely on somebody else's expertise to tell me that, they know how to build my social media audience when I've already gotten to where I've gotten by myself. I'm just going to
right.
tell you, keep doing what I'm already doing because that works.
Right. I think it's really good to find, like, when you're ready to outsource, being like, okay, I know this is as far as I can go and that my time is more valuable to do XYZ instead and think more
Yes.
higher level. But this person's like, okay, this is good. But then when you know what you need, right?
Yeah.
But on that point, right, I think one of the things you pointed out is, taking not being treated like dirt, right, at your company. And I'm sure you've had to learn this the hard way too. But what is something that you would tell someone watching or listening to kind of take that steps? Because that's not like an easy like step, right? Because you're just like, wait, no, I want stability, and this is also why you want to create little multiple income streams, because you don't want
Yeah.
to have to rely on being treated like dirt. But what
It's
are
true.
yeah, what are one of the things that you would say, especially, people think about money as like, oh, it's, I need it, but it's like shifting that mentality and at the workplace.
Yeah, I will definitely say like I was not one to negotiate salary when I was younger. I was kind of just like that wasn't something you did. That's just not a thing that ladies do, right? Be grateful, blah blah blah. But definitely like once you start to understand your value, like it's much more easy to advocate on your own behalf. And I think part of what has made me successful in my corporate career has been the business side of my life, like my side hustle side of my life, because as a blogger, I've had to advocate on my own behalf when I'm pitching brands and I want to work with them. So I've been very comfortable in that space, like asking for money and asking for what I'm worth. And it was just a matter of like translating that to my 9 to 5, right? So once you are comfortable advocating on your behalf, and I think negotiation is a skill that you have to learn. Like nobody's born knowing how to negotiate. Um, and it can be like a challenge to yourself. Like start off by calling up your credit card company and seeing if they'll lower your interest rate. Like if you can start getting comfortable just asking for things, you can start leveling up the next part, right? So then when you're up for review at your job and your boss is like, tell me what you've accomplished, like you can actually go in there with actual data and supporting documentation that is like, yeah, this is the value that I'm adding. And you just gotta build that muscle. It is literally a muscle. Like advocating and asking for money and negotiating, it's all a muscle you have to exercise. So call up a friend, like literally pretend like you're negotiating your salary with your friend and they're your boss. Like role play in the mirror if you have to. Record yourself, because I think it's important too to see like how you interact with people. If you continuously get like negative responses when you're asking for things from people, look at what you look like
Mm-hmm.
because you don't know. I mean, unless you do it in front of a mirror, like you have no idea what you sound like. Maybe you sound really scared when you're asking for money. Maybe you sound like really aggressive. Maybe you sound like you're not confident in what you're saying. So you got to understand like what is being perceived from people so that when you're in the space, you can know like, all right, I know how I look and I look like a bad bitch and I look like somebody who's going to get the money that I deserve.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Oh, oh my God. Yeah. And it's funny when you mentioned like the little thing, right? Like to start with, I think even like, and I see this happen a lot, and I don't stand for this. When you get charged the wrong thing, when you're like buying food or anything, or they'll like put twice, and you can ask nicely. I think that's the
Yes.
other thing, right?
I
Like
used
you're
to be
just
the person that would let somebody charge me the wrong price. And then now I will literally argue with you over 25 cents. Like it's a matter of principle. I'm like, this sign said it was buy one, get one free. I didn't see those 99 cents off my receipt. So can we handle that? Like
yes,
and you don't have to apologize for it. Like it's there. You know what I'm saying? You're not making
right.
stuff up. Just ask for what you rightfully deserve.
Yes, and I think I completely agree on the business side of things. Is that's when you start realizing you're like, wait, this is how this works. And I think you've said it, or maybe I watched it in a live that you did, where you were like, America loves businesses more than
Yeah,
people.
they sure
Uh,
do.
yeah, and I think that's one of the other things that when people think about, okay, if we're gonna, I don't want to be a business, I'd rather just like work. And it's like you are still providing that a service. You're providing a service to a company. Like they're subcontracting you essentially and
That's
getting,
it.
yeah.
Let me tell
Um,
you something, Joy. What a lot of people don't realize is that a 9 to 5 is a pyramid scheme. And I'll explain to you why. If you ever looked at a hierarchy chart, like in HR, it's a triangle. There's a guy on the top and there's a bunch of people on the bottom. So you're just working for a legal pyramid scheme where your time is what is the product. So if you're using your time to make somebody else money, you can definitely use that same time to make yourself money.
Yes. Oh man, I love that. Yeah, and yeah, and it's funny because the more I moved up, even when I started, and I think it's just like my principles and like how I view the world. When I started managing people, I was like, wait, I'm doing less work, and like it felt weird telling them like, can you do this for me, knowing what their salary was, right? And I was like, they're getting paid half as much. And like, yes,
Right.
obviously you're managing people, but then you start to realize you're like, wait, I'm thinking more strategic and bringing more money in, but then you realize like, oh, it's like because this is how it works, right? Versus you could probably offer that same service to a company and actually make more money
And
in the
charge
end.
whatever the hell you want.
Exactly. And that's like what I do now, right? Like, because I'm just like, no, no, no. Like
Right.
this isn't paying for
You can
therapy.
raise your prices whenever you want as opposed to waiting for a 2% raise at the end of the year after busting your ass.
Yes, yeah, and I mean, we could just talk about
We could
that
be here all day
forever.
about this.
But yes, I completely agree, and I think that, I mean, yeah, getting your perspective on this and people seeing that, like, I'm sure if they saw you in the street, they'd be like, she's an everyday person, right?
And I am.
You are, obviously, but then, right, you're just like, wait a second, this woman literally is building an empire and stability for herself and generational wealth, right? That's something that was not put in place for us, but you're actually setting that up for your future, but also for yourself, like to not have to depend on anybody else. And that's like the main key takeaway, right? Like
Yeah.
everyone can create these systems for themselves.
Absolutely. And I think, like, as a woman, especially as a Latina, I've definitely seen many examples in my family of women who have stayed, like, in relationships that they shouldn't be in because of financial limitations. And so I think that definitely shaped my independent nature. I was always just like, I don't care who I'm married to, I don't care who I'm with. Like, I'm going to have everything that I need. That, God forbid, they walk out or I'm done or whatever happens, like I'm not worried about money. I'm not stuck in a situation. And I think that's such an important place for us to be as women in general. Like for so many years, like, we have been limited by what society allows us to do. And I think like millennial women are one of the first generations that have limitless possibilities. Like we can own the types of wealth that women before us could not. Um, and so it's a duty to our ancestors, y'all. Like we have to make up for all of this lost time. Like, why would you not want to do that?
Yes. Yeah. Oh man. Oh, I think I learned that from your post on Yo Quiero Dinero, what like RGB had done, right?
Yeah.
Get us mortgages
You
and stuff. And I
couldn't get
was like,
mortgages, you couldn't get a credit card, you couldn't get a loan, you couldn't buy a house without a man signing off on this stuff. And like
I
it
know.
sounds insane, but this was only like less than 50 years ago.
Yeah, like she was alive.
Yes.
And
You know, my mom my mom's generation could not do the things that I have been able to do. And so I'm really passionate about this idea of like building wealth as a woman, being unapologetic about wanting that too, right? Because there's so much stigma around money and women wanting money, and it's crap because men have been allowed to chase the bag forever. So we should also be able to do that and be as wealthy, if not more wealthy, because honestly, women are better investors and business owners in general and just
And
better
we're going to
decision makers.
live longer.
We're going to live longer. So we have to set ourselves up for success.
Yes, yes. Oh my God. This has been amazing. I'm glad that we finally did this.
Yes, me
Thank you
too.
for being patient with me. And what is one thing that you would tell like a younger you that a listener can take away?
I would definitely say do not let society or your families or anybody else's expectations dictate where you go and who you are and how you move in the world, because I think for a long time, especially in my 20s, I was like super self-conscious about like judgment and caring about what people thought about my decisions because they didn't necessarily align with what was acceptable. And I think that's crap. Like you need to just live your authentic life. You need to be unapologetic about what you want because it's your life, it's yours to live, and you only get one. So, like, why would you spend any time caring about what anybody else thinks? Like, you need to worry about what's going to make you happy. And once I started following that advice for myself, girl, it's life changing. So,
Yes, yes. That's why I'm here with no makeup on.
love it.
But yeah. And where can people find you and everything that you're up to? Get to work with you.
Yes. So you can find my food blog at Delish Delights. That's DLITES.com. And you can find my podcast at Yo Quiero Dinero podcast.com. And all of the socials are on those websites. So find me anywhere that is tickles your fancy.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And then